Texas News with Chip Moody, Ward Andrews, Harold Taft, and Doug Vare, with special reports from Frank Healer and Willie Monroe. Now, here's Chip Moody.
Thank you and good evening. There's been a major development in that probe of the Fort Worth Police Department's Auto Theft Division by the Citizens Investigation Committee. Channel 5's Frank Healer has been covering the recent hearings, and he was there this evening when some startling new facts were uncovered. Frank?
Today's hearings were to have been the last in the commander's probe, but testimony today changed the committee's plans. Deputy J.H. Usry, responding to questioning by committee members, revealed the existence of taped transcripts of interviews of several former members of the Auto Theft Division. Usry said Captain Garland Giesland taped the interviews last December, and he said those tapes were made without the knowledge of the officers. Usry said a copy of those transcripts was given to the district attorney's office and another to the police department's internal affairs division. The investigating committee then ordered that the transcript be made available immediately. The transcript was produced, and upon examination by the committee, the transcripts revealed that Lieutenant John Cunningham and Detective R.L. Phelps had taken vacations and recovered stolen cars. The transcripts pointed up contradictions in previous testimony from former auto theft detectives and high-ranking officers of the Fort Worth Police Department. All had testified previously that they had no knowledge of such practices. Chief T.S. Walls was recalled to the stand and testified that he knew of the transcript's existence, but withheld it because, in his words, the tapes were made illegally without the knowledge of those being interviewed.
Do you recall a conversation with anyone concerning your decision not to disclose the existence of this information?
No one.
Did you inform City Manager Line that you had this information but were not going to disclose it to the committee?
No, I did not.
Did you inform any member of the City Council of this?
No.
Did you inform the mayor of this, Mayor Overcash?
No.
Did you consult with any member of the City Attorney's Office as to the legalities of withholding this information?
I consulted with him about the legalities of withholding all the information.
Did you tell the City Attorney's Office that this particular information existed?
I don't know. I was talking about all the information.
What were you advised by the City Attorney's Office?
That it was questionable.
It was questionable. Or did he advise you not to turn it over?
I don't know that he gave me that kind of advice. He said it was very questionable whether any of that information should be made available to this committee.
Walls then found himself in a tight situation when Committee Counsel Robert Watson began questioning closely on when he first learned that recovered autos were indeed used by detectives for personal trips.
When did you learn that he drove one to Colorado?
It was sometime later, and I don't know when, but months later.
What? Yeah, it was prior to our taking your testimony, wasn't it?
Yeah, well,
It was prior to July of 1975.
I don't know, Mr. Watson. I can't answer that.
You don't know whether you learned of this prior to July of 1975?
No, I don't know the date.
Well, according to these transcripts, Captain Giesland was aware of it in December of 1974. He didn't tell you about it?
Mr. Watson, I don't know what he told me. I can't remember all that. I knew the people were driving the cars in December 1972. I have testified to that.
But not to Colorado?
Somebody told me Lieutenant Cunningham took to Colorado. Lieutenant didn't tell me. Somebody else told me.
Yes, sir.
I don't remember who told me.
Or when?
Or when, because I just don't remember.
Members of the investigating committee voiced displeasure that those transcripts had not been given to them sooner, and they agreed that the transcripts, if they had been available, the committee's hearings would have been concluded at a much earlier date. With the introduction of the transcripts, the committee now will conduct still further hearings and will recall a number of witnesses who testified in earlier sessions. And it is possible that the panel could find a number of previous witnesses in contempt. Ward?
A family feud exploded in gunfire in South Dallas County this afternoon, leaving an elderly man dead and 2 other persons wounded. Sheriff's officers say Richard Gaston came to this house on Fulgham Road near Wilmer to continue a running argument with his wife's grandfather, Richard Rackley. There apparently were more bitter words, after which Gaston reportedly shot the 68-year-old Rackley in the head with a revolver. He was dead on arrival at a hospital. Gaston fired another round at his mother-in-law, wounding her in the head before he himself was brought under fire from Rackley's 63-year-old wife, Lily Bell. She cut loose with a .410 gauge shotgun, one charge from which caused Gaston minor head wounds as he raced out of the house. He's in good condition at a hospital, as is his mother-in-law, Lenora Fritz.
The death of Earl Cabell and new developments in the Sarah Moore case when the Texas News continues. The City Hall flag in Dallas was flown at half-staff today following this morning's death of 68-year-old Earl Cabell, a one-time Dallas mayor and former congressman. Cabell, who died in a hospital after a long illness, was a member of a wealthy family when he was elected mayor. And he was to preside over the city in its darkest hour, the assassination of President John Kennedy. In fact, Mr. and Mrs. Cabell rode in the fourth car of the ill-fated presidential motorcade, and Mrs. Cabell actually saw the rifle jutting from the window of the school book depository building.
I saw it after the first shot was fired. It was almost impossible for me not to look up at that window because I was turned toward the window at the time, and I simply raised my head and saw the gun.
You could see the gun, but could not see anyone behind it or anything?
No.
Or any identification?
I saw nothing but the gun.
Cabell, as mayor of Dallas, found himself the victim of hate mail and mysterious threats after the assassination. For a time, he was heavily guarded, and as recommended by police, Cabell flew to Washington for the president's funeral under an assumed name. In the face of heavy criticism of Dallas, Cabell defended the city wherever he went, saying time would calm hard feelings and bring about more reasonable attitudes.
Both of us are extremely delighted that everything seems to be calmed down now, and we can go about our normal business without any fear from any outside dangers. We feel completely at ease with reference to our safety.
In 1964, Cabell quit the mayor's post to successfully run for Congress. He became a hawk during the Vietnam War and an advocate of a strong defense posture. He said those who didn't want a strong defense would see Russia victorious in the Cold War.
When Russian tanks moved into Prague and brutally destroyed the Free Czech government, you didn't hear one peep out of those people who were telling us that we shouldn't arm ourselves.
In 1972, Cabell announced for a fifth term, but he was beaten for re-election by Republican Alan Steelman. Cabell then faded into political obscurity. Funeral services are scheduled for 11 o'clock Friday morning at St. Michael's and All Angels Church.
A federal grand jury at San Francisco tonight indicted 27-year-old house painter Stephen Celaya on charges of harboring a fugitive. Celaya rented the apartment where fugitives Patty Hearst and Wendy Yoshimura were arrested Thursday. Celaya's two sisters are being sought for questioning in the Hearst case. Also tonight, Miss Hearst's traveling companions William and Emily Harris were placed on $500,000 bail each in connection with California state charges. The couple will be transferred to Los Angeles to face arraignment on 18 felony charges growing out of their activities with the Symbionese Liberation Army. Authorities are blaming the SLA and its sympathizers with a series of terrorist bombings during the 2 months prior to Patty Hearst's arrest, and officials say other attacks were in the planning stages. 27-year-old James Kilgore is sought in connection with that investigation. Kilgore is a house painter and a friend of Stephen Celaya. According to published reports in Washington, D.C., a young Army WAC was found unconscious on a sidewalk near the White House in 1950. The WAC, identified as Sarah Kahn, reportedly suffered from amnesia. The Army says it has no military record of a WAC named Sarah Kahn, but will double-check. Sarah Jane Kahn is the maiden name of Sarah Jane Moore, charged with attempted assassination of President Ford in San Francisco on Monday. There were also reports from San Francisco today that Mrs. Moore was working as a government informer just 24 hours before she fired at the president. She reportedly had information about illegal weapons and talked about a man named Mark Fernwood. NBC's Rick Davis today visited the man who sold the suspect the gun used Monday afternoon.
Mark Fernwood is a gun collector, and he manufactures replicas of antique weapons. He's not a dealer. 2 weeks ago, he sold Sarah Jane Moore a .44 caliber pistol, the one confiscated by San Francisco police on Sunday. Monday, he sold her a .38. That was 11 a.m., 4.5 hours before that handgun was fired at President Ford.
She seemed very friendly, very calm. There's nothing about her demeanor that would have in any way indicated that she had such a terrible thing on her mind.
Mark Fernwood wants to make it clear he is not a member of any left-wing radical group. He's a conservative and an anti-communist, and he's against gun controls. The sale to Sarah Jane Moore was not illegal in this state. Rick Davis, NBC News, Danville, California.
Former President Richard Nixon has been ordered to answer questions under oath as a defendant in a civil suit in connection with the White House Plumbers Unit. He'll also be asked to volunteer and faces possible subpoena to testify before a congressional committee looking into alleged improper domestic activities by intelligence agents. The Senate Intelligence Committee, chaired by Frank Church, voted to ask Nixon to voluntarily appear. Co-chairman John Tower of Texas objected to talk about a subpoena, saying that should be a last resort. The committee today zeroed in on illegal action by the CIA in opening and reading mail of some prominent Americans, one letter sent to Richard Nixon in 1968 before he became president.
The General Accounting Office today reported to a White House committee, to a U.S. House committee today, its findings in a first-ever audit of the FBI. The agency was criticized for a low batting average in warning of radical or subversive activities. Meanwhile, FBI agents today arrested 29-year-old Leonard Handelsman in Seattle, Washington. He is a radical who had been sought since 1970 on charges of mob action and pipe bomb possession.
Congressional committees recently enjoyed widespread publicity over the failure of the CIA and other agencies to destroy deadly nerve gas as ordered. Well, today, the House passed a military weapons bill of nearly $31 billion, and the weapons list includes nerve gas.
The sale of beer on the campus of the University of Texas at Arlington is on its way to becoming a reality now that the proposal has the official approval of the school's administration. Willie Monroe has the report.
Since last year, there has been serious discussion of having beer on the UTA campus. Administration officials had reacted favorably to the idea, but an early proposal which would have allowed it was turned down as unacceptable. The idea now has gained approval because of plans to renovate the Student Center. A $1.5 million renovation of the center was approved by UT Regents in July. The remodeling would allow construction of a coffee house, which could have entertainment programs, and at which beer could be sold. UTA President Dr. Wendell Netterman says half the universities in the nation already allow beer sales, and he thinks it could make UTA a more pleasant and interesting campus.
Since 1959, which is the year I came here, an almost continual complaint from students has been lack of anything to do on campus. And as we emerge as a growing institution, I think we're going to have to change this. And I see the coffee house, which incidentally is not in the mainstream of activities in the Student Center, but in a particular designated area, so that the 26% of the students who oppose the coffee house concept can still use the Student Center in the normal manner. But I view it as a place where students and faculty can get together and can discuss things in a relaxed atmosphere. And I really don't see it as something that's going to upset the university as some of our critics seem to feel.
There's at least one more obstacle before students and faculty on the UTA campus will be sipping beer. The plan has to be approved by the regents of the University of Texas. That, however, is considered little more than a formality since beer already is served on 2 campuses, at Austin and in the Permian Basin. Willie Monroe, Area 5 News.
South Central Expressway in Dallas took on a western flavor today after a cattle truck overturned and the cargo escaped. The driver and a passenger were not injured, but about 20 of the 180 calves aboard the truck were killed. The rest escaped and put an additional strain on South Central's rush hour traffic. The truck left Jacksonville, Texas around 2 this morning en route to Blythe, California, but the driver failed to negotiate a curve at Grand and South Central, and the truck flipped over. Several off-duty policemen and members of the Mounted Park Patrol aided traffic officers in the roundup. By midday, most of the Mavericks were back in custody. Fair and mild, the key words of Harold's forecast, 90 seconds away.
Well, Harold, as we approach the weekend, I would imagine there are thousands of Monday through Friday workers wondering if this beautiful weather will extend into Saturday and possibly through Sunday.
Well, it'll be good weather. I don't think it'll rain, but the situation will change. Between now and Saturday morning, we'll have haze in the morning, and then with the weekend coming up, the wind should be coming around into the south, picking up a little gusty. Temperatures up into the low 80 bracket, and pretty much the same, but not quite. The temperatures will be up just a bit. Right now, little or no weather being reported around over the state. That is, no inclement weather at all. Very few clouds. Temperatures variable because the winds are dying off. We plotted the 10 o'clock temperature reports, give a little idea of how it's dropping off now. 60 degrees is the current reading in Dallas. We're showing 59 here at KXAS. 57 degrees north Fort Worth. It's 62 at Waco, and 58 degrees along the Red River. It's 57 at Mineral Wells. And along the coast, temperatures generally in the 60s. There's a few 70 reports down there. McAllen 71, Victoria 70 degrees. Winds northeast along the coast, and for the next 2 or 3 days, they'll be out of the northeast to east at 6 to 15 knots. And we can expect the seas to run 2 to 4 feet, but we don't look for any shower activity. So if you're planning a trip down onto the coastal regions, might be a pretty good time to consider it. Now, on the weather map, the old tropical hurricane Eloise has died out in the mountains of West Virginia, but low centers still prevail in that region, and there's widespread rain. So far, we've had no massive flooding, and may escape it. The precipitation has been somewhere around 5 inches, and in New York City, LaGuardia Airport today reported a 2-inch rainfall. There's a threat of flooding in New Jersey and Maryland, Pennsylvania, portions of New York, on up into portions of Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and more rain tonight can certainly aggravate that situation, which is a little critical right now. Showers and thunderstorms extend south on down into southern Florida. The temperatures you see on the chart, these were the highest of the day, 78 degrees Dallas, 77 Fort Worth, and another day of 100-plus temperatures at Los Angeles, 102 degrees there. It was 99 at Phoenix, and you can see the temperatures increasing all along the coast, many points just inland from the coastal waters reporting temperatures of 100 to 102 degrees. The wind flow pattern in the upper levels showing high pressure over the western part of the country, and the low center that formed down over Louisiana and Arkansas, now beginning to push on off to the northeast. That should begin to push the rain along with it, and we hope that they won't get enough to cause any flooding up there in the northeast. But the good weather will prevail across Texas, and we in the morning will expect to see light north to northeasterly winds, temperatures about 50 degrees. But because the winds will be very light, we would not be surprised to see some readings as low as 45. By afternoon and evening, shower activity all up in the northeastern part of the country, and the storm beginning to break up quite a bit, but shower activity will still be evident there. We'll call it mild because we think the temperatures will still be below normal for this time of the year over Area 5. There's nothing on the radar, and the sky outside is clear. The visibility is unrestricted, and the wind dying off now. It's indicating north, but it's light, 3 to 5 miles an hour. The barometer stands at 30 and 28 hundredths, and the relative humidity at this moment is 52%. The temperature, KXAS, 58 degrees, and we have had no rain, and we don't expect any for the foreseeable future anyway. We're going to say fair and mild through Friday, and that'll pretty well continue into the weekend with northerly winds slowly coming around into the southeast by Friday night. 45 to 50 in the morning, 76 in the afternoon, and then 50 to 78 on Friday. That's below normal for this time of the year, but it's mighty pleasant. Could be a record low in the morning, though, Chip.
We'll watch. 2 pro basketball teams are in the news tonight. Doug is on deck with sports.
Well, it's not unusual to hear of individual players jumping leagues, but whole teams, that's got to be a first.
I was shocked, I really was, when I saw it on the wire tonight. The Associated Press says they have learned that tomorrow 2 ABA teams, Denver and New York, will file application to jump to the NBA. Now, if that happens, watch out for the lawsuits. Sources told the Associated Press negotiations over the past 2 months between the 2 ABA teams and the rival NBA are designed to bring Denver and New York into the National Basketball Association as 2 expansion clubs in 1976. John Y. Brown, president of the ABA, said today, there is no way the 2 clubs could be legally taken into the NBA. It's simply illegal. All ABA teams would file suit. If Denver and New York somehow managed to jump to the NBA, it would certainly bring about the downfall of the ABA. In pro football, two NFL clubs, Buffalo and Houston, have voted to reject the owner's latest contract proposal. The Oilers by a unanimous vote, and Buffalo by a count of 42-1. If you remember, the Bills and the Oilers were among the least militant teams during last week's strike. But as one Bill player said today, after hearing what's been offered, the players have made a 180-degree turn. Other NFL clubs are scheduled to vote tomorrow and Friday. In hockey, the Fort Worth Texans opened training camp at Will Rogers Coliseum today. It's the first time in their 9-year history the Texans have trained at home. Also for the first time, the Texans will be stocked by two parent NHL clubs, the New York Islanders and the Los Angeles Kings. Another new look is the head coach. Terry Gray, a veteran of 15 years in pro hockey, ran his club through their first two-a-day workouts. Only 3 former Texans returned from 1975's last-place club. One of them, Glennie Johnson, says the Texans should be more aggressive this year.
We've got some very fast hockey players, but I think we've also got some tough hockey players. You know, no goon-type hockey players, I don't believe, but just all-around tough physical hockey players, and that's what you need. You know, if you can play aggressive, hard-hitting game, but a clean game, you stay on the penalty box, then you're going to win games, and the boys can skate, too.
Have any dreams about Randy Holt during the offseason?
No, I didn't think too much about Randy. But I'll be ready for him if he's there. I guess he's up with Chicago right now, and he started a fight the other day in an exhibition game with Chicago and Los Angeles, I believe, or Boston. Boston was. But no, I'll just take each game as it goes along, and if something happens, with Dallas, I know we play him about 14 times, but I think in a sense you might have established myself that I won't back down, but I'm not out looking for a fight, so. But Randy, he's a good hockey player when he wants to play hockey.
If you've never seen a National Hockey League game, you have an excellent opportunity Saturday night. The Kings and the Islanders play an exhibition game at Will Rogers. NHL officials will take a close look at attendance. There is some interest in putting a National Hockey League club into Area 5. In baseball, the Rangers are idle today and tomorrow before their final series of the year gets underway Friday at Arlington Stadium against Kansas City. Here's a look at tonight's action around the American League. Baltimore beat Detroit 8-1. Milwaukee bombed Cleveland 10-3. Boston and New York had a twin bill rained out. Minnesota leads Kansas City after 6, and Oakland is just starting. In the National League, Tom Seaver had a no-hitter going for 8 2/3 innings until a 2-out, 2-strike single by a rookie quashed his hopes for his first no-hitter. Chicago went on to win 1-0. San Francisco nipped Atlanta in the first game. The second one was canceled. Philadelphia down Pittsburgh, Montreal over St. Louis. Cincinnati beat Houston, and Los Angeles and San Diego are just getting started. Ward?
The fares for Dallas transit services may go up. Films coming next.
The Dallas Transit Board today recommended several bus fare increases in order to make up for a budget cutback from the City Council. Today's action was necessary because last week the Council cut $350,000 from the DTS budget. That cutback also meant the transit system would lose another $350,000 in federal assistance. The proposed increases include a jump in park and ride fares from 50 to 75 cents. Zone crossing fares would go from a nickel to a dime for each zone. These and other proposed bus fare increases will have to be approved by the City Council before they go into effect.
Harold says it'll be fair and mild through Friday. That's the news. Good night.
Good night.